Dempsey again. Hope you all are well. Today I was thinking that we would talk a little bit about some science. I have been noticing some pretty wacky weather these last few weeks. We've had sunny, beautiful days and cloudy days. We've had rainy days and even snowy days. And that's got Miss Dempsey thinking about all the different kinds of weather there are. I want you to take a moment and share with your grown-up a type of weather that happens outside. When I think about weather, I first think about sunny days. Sunny days are warm, and they are great for going out to play. Another type of weather is cloudy. Cloudy is when there's lots of clouds in the sky. Sometimes they're big fluffy white clouds that might happen on a summer day. Sometimes they're dark clouds that might mean that a storm is coming. I'm going to write stormy as another kind of weather. Stormy. And then when it storms, sometimes there's rain. It might be a rainstorm, so I'm going to write rainy. Rainy. And as I said, with our crazy weather these past few weeks, we've even had snowy days. That's another type of weather. Snowy. There are many, many other types of weather. But when I look down and I see cloudy, stormy, rainy, and snowy, it gets me thinking of something called the water cycle. The water cycle is something that impacts our weather. It's how water can change different states. It can become gas, it can become liquid, just by heating and cooling. So I wanted to do a little bit of a project with you around the water cycle with all of this weather that's been happening for us. I'm going to put our types of weather paper away, and I'm going to take out a weather words chart here. There are 4 different parts to the water cycle that we're going to learn about today. The first part is a big word called evaporation. Can you say that? Evaporation. Evaporation is when water heats up and turns into water vapor or steam. So I'm going to draw a picture of evaporation. So I have some water. For example, if you've ever seen a pot of water boiling on the stove and you've seen the steam rising off of it, that's evaporation. That's evaporation that's happening very quickly. Sometimes evaporation might be slower. It might be like a puddle outside, drying in the sunshine. Another part of our water cycle is condensation. Condensation is the opposite of evaporation. Where evaporation is when water heats up and turns to a gas, condensation is when it cools down and turns back to a liquid. We are most familiar with condensation, as part of the water cycle anyway, in the form of clouds. Condensation you might have seen happening on blades of grass in the morning because the water vapor sticks to and cools down on the cold grass. Or maybe the ground is warm and the air is cold, but you have to have warm and cold coming together to make condensation. Another example might be when you're drinking a glass of ice water. Sometimes you might feel water starting to collect on the outside of that glass. The warm air that has water vapor in it is cooling down as it touches the sides of that ice water glass, and it's causing condensation. Our next one is precipitation. Precipitation is when those water droplets from condensation get so big and so heavy that they fall from the sky. Precipitation can come in many forms, such as rain, snow, sleet, and hail. So I'm going to draw some raindrops here. There we go. And the last word that I haven't put on here is the word collection. Collection is when the rain that's fallen from the sky or the snow, it melts into the ground and it travels and it collects in lakes, oceans, ponds, streams, rivers. Okay? So I'm just going to put this over here and I'm going to teach you a little song about the water cycle. It goes to the tune of She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain. Water moves in a cycle, yes it does. Water moves in a cycle, yes it does. It goes up as evaporation, forms clouds as condensation, falls down as precipitation, yes it does. Let's do that one more time. Water moves in a cycle, yes it does. Water moves in a cycle, yes it does. It goes up as evaporation, forms clouds as condensation, falls down as precipitation, yes it does. Nice job. So I have a couple activities that I'm going to show you in this video today where you can create your very own water cycle. We're going to be doing it with a jar or container. We're going to make clouds in a jar. And if you don't have a jar, you could even do this with just a Ziploc bag. Hi friends! Okay, so here we are, ready to start our first water cycle activity. So, Miss Dempsey has a couple things that you would need if you'd like to do this at home. I have a clear glass jar. You could use plastic. It's just a recycled pickle jar because we love pickles here. And then over here, Miss Dempsey has a little glass dish of cold water. And then over here, I have some hot water that I heated up in the microwave. You do not have to have it heated up, but for this video, I thought it would make it go faster. So you could make this jar and leave it out in the sunshine and let it naturally cause the water cycle to happen. So here we go. First of all, the water collects down at the bottom. And then as the sun heats it up, it starts to evaporate. I'm going to pour my hot water into our jar. The collection will be at the bottom, and you'll probably already see some reactions happening as soon as I pour. As I pour in the hot water, did you see the sides of the glass fog up? Here, I'm going to move a little bit closer. See that? Okay. Now, that's evaporation. So the water is heated up and turned into water vapor, which causes it to evaporate. Then you'll already see some fog happening on the side because the sides were cooler than the water was. So I'm going to add my cold water to the top. And the cold water is the atmosphere. High, up where the clouds form is called the atmosphere. And it's cold up there. And so what happens is the warm water that's turned into water vapor and gone up into the atmosphere now starts to cool back down. If it gets hot and turns to water vapor, what happens when it gets cold again? That's right, it turns back into a liquid through a process called condensation. That's when we see these clouds forming. So that fog inside the jar is actually a mini cloud. Isn't that cool? So as I move my camera closer, you can see that the water vapor is condensing and making droplets along the side. And as those droplets collect together, they make bigger droplets. And when they get heavy enough, they're going to fall as precipitation. See if we can be patient and wait for a droplet. Let me see. I'm going to pick up the top jar and see what happens. I see it. Oh, did you see the raindrop? So cool. Oh, I think it's going to do it again. Oh, there's another one. I'm going to put it back. So I'm having a lot of fun watching our little cloud in a jar do its work with the water cycle. I hope you enjoyed this activity. Miss Dempsey is going to show you one other way to create a water cycle at home. This one, you'll need just a Ziploc bag. As promised, here is another way to do our water cycle activity. You'll notice that in the window, I have taped up a large Ziploc bag. And on it, I've drawn some pictures with a Sharpie to talk about the different stages of the water cycle. Down at the bottom, Miss Dempsey poured water into our bag, and notice that it's kind of jiggling at the bottom as I poke it. And that's where our water is collecting. So there's a collection down at the bottom. I put it in the window so that the sun could heat it up. And as the sun is heating up the water that's collecting at the bottom of the bag, it's evaporating. Evaporation. You'll notice that if you try to look through the bag, that it's kind of foggy. But if you look outside the bag, it's clear. That's because that water vapor has raised up as it's heated up, and then it's condensing. Through condensation, it is turned into a cloud inside our bag. That's why it looks foggy in there. Now, if I were to go a little bit closer to the bag, you can see that some of them have condensed so much that they're starting to form these water droplets. And if I were to tap or jiggle the bag, or you could just leave it alone, but eventually when those little water droplets get heavy enough, they start to pour down the inside of the bag as precipitation or rain. And then they collect down at the bottom again. So there you are. If you want to, you could do this experiment both ways, or you could do it using a Ziploc bag, depending on what you have available at home. Okay, so right now I have all of my pieces cut up, and I have put some glue on the back of my little sun, and I'm going to take my rays and I'm going to stick them around the outside of my little sun. And there we go. There's my sun. I'm going to put that aside. And then I have these pieces that say evaporation, precipitation, collection, and condensation. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. This piece says collection. Collection is when water collects in oceans, streams, lakes, and rivers, essentially making big puddles. So I'm going to use some double-sided sticky tape, but if you have glue at home, that works too. And I'm just going to glue it into a little circle like that. Then, the next piece that I'm going to stick on is my evaporation. After it collects, it evaporates and it goes up into the atmosphere in the form of water vapor or gas. What causes it to evaporate? Do you remember? How does it warm up? That's right. Heat from the sun warms up the collection of water and causes it to evaporate. Then, when it gets up into the atmosphere, it cools down and it gets cold again, which causes it to turn back into a liquid. So I'm going to stick that on there. And when it turns back into a liquid, it's a process called condensation. There we go, condensation. And as the clouds get thicker and heavier with all of that water vapor that's turning back into a liquid, soon it gets too heavy to stay up there and it falls down as precipitation. I'm going to stick my little precipitations down there too. One goes here. And the other one goes here. There. So now we have this tube that's showing evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. And just as the final little piece, we're going to have the sun up there because without the sun, this process couldn't happen. I don't have a string with me, but what you'll do is you'll just punch a little hole in your sun and punch a little hole in either side of your clouds, and it'll hang like that. And have a little water cycle windsock that you can hang up at home. Okay, friends, I hope you enjoyed our discussion about weather and the water cycle today. Take care and be well. Till next time.